All right. Had a technical thing, so I think two people logged in and then I disappeared. All right, so I'm supposed to be live filming podcast number 2 tonight at 8 o'clock. I'm 15 minutes late and pretty much a shit show. So I apologize for anybody who was actually looking forward to that. So here's the, we'll start with, back kind of to recap from last one. And this may just end up being a live video, and I may redo everything for the actual episode 2. So what's happening is I'm filming live my recordings for the podcast, and then we're hosting the podcast in a few weeks, episode 1, 2, 3. This will build into an actual show with call-ins and interviews and guests and all that kind of stuff. All right, so that's what we're building to. It's called The 5%, the men's podcast that women should tune into or listen to or whatever, because we're going to talk about men's issues, but we're not anti-female or anything like that. So there's a lot of groups out there that are anti-woman. That's not me. That's not the point of this channel. So the basic premise, as I covered in the last episode, is, the reason for this, what does being in the 5% mean? And you can go into my YouTube channel and check out a video of what that actually means. But the basic premise is it's about leveling up every aspect of your life. As a male, that's what we want to do. As a dominant alpha male in our society, if that's what we are, that's what you are. If that is what you want to be, most people aspire to be the most that they can be. So if you're a determined person who wants to be the best you can, our dedication is to try to be the best version of ourselves. And we're going to talk about issues as males that will help us do that. But females, of course, can tune in and I want the feedback from females as well, because that's going to help you as females, understand your men better, understand what drives men, what makes them tick, because a lot of you guys have no idea, and then also maybe how to better yourself, your situation too, because leveling up and being the best version of yourself isn't really gender specific. So, the premise too behind this is that why men, why that issue? Well, it's just that men are displaced in our current modern society. That's the idea. That's what the premise is. And so I go through that in episode 1 and why that is in greater detail. But basically what made men attracted to the opposite sex and valuable in society for thousands of years, how we evolved, is no longer what makes men valuable today. And in fact, men in general don't know where their value is. As a man, they're trying to find value. You try to find value as a person in your place in society and as what it means to be a man and being valuable as a man in your household, with your family, even as a single guy, whatever, within your circle of friends, your sphere of influences, your business, what have you. Knowing how to make decisions as a man and to actually be a man, it's not well understood anymore. And you can tell with our snowflake generation and a lot of guys out there who just don't know how to handle women, they don't know how to handle themselves, and they don't know how to make decisions, they don't know how to take charge of their lives, a lot of different problems, right? And as I explained in that video, it's because so the thing that made men, the most rudimentary biological thing that women were attracted to in men, which is a big driver, and then also how society viewed and respected men, were resources and dominant characteristics, So dominant characteristics could mean looks, definitely, but it was really looks / behavior. Behavior is more prevalent as an attractive quality. And you'll see that a lot, because you'll see females who are with guys who are maybe not in the same category of attractiveness as them. You'll see that dude with that girl and you're like, how does that dude have that girl right now? And the reasons he has her, it could be a lot of reasons, because we're thinking human beings, and maybe they fell in love in a fairy tale circumstance, right? We don't know. But a lot of the reasons for that, though, is resources. But what if resources isn't into play? It's dominant characteristics. He might be, unless he's a narcissist or a type, what's it called now? A type B category personality disorder, and he's duped her. Maybe he's handling her like a man, whereas the rest of you guys, maybe arguably don't handle your women like men. So you have these guys with these really good looking girls, and maybe they're not so good looking, right? So it's not always about looks, but definitely dominant characteristics, knowing how to make a decision, take control, take charge as a man. These things are important things. But we're told in our society nowadays, though, that masculinity is not okay. So masculinity is under attack. It's presented as a cartoon in Hollywood. So you got pick your favorite action star kicking ass and throwing dudes through windows and shit like that in the movies. But how it actually applies, being a man applies in real life, real time with your spheres of influence. It's not well presented, and actually masculinity is generally presented as a bad thing. Okay, so and then you add to then the second component is resources. Well, now males and females have the opportunity to collect resources. I would argue equally, but even if you believe in the pay gap myth, it's still they still have the ability though to collect and accumulate resources today in a way that they never have before. So females can make just as much money as a guy, if not more money, right? And so guys are just not relied on for those resources. And even as such, if you have two working parents, in order to make ends meet in our current society, in order to afford the things that you would like to afford, and that's how you run your life, that man is not solely being relied on for his resources, and then the woman's providing other things of value into the household. They're both providing resources now. And so the resource component, it's not that it's not an attractive quality, but as far as a core value, has been reduced as something that we need men around for. So men have a decreased feeling of value, and so forth. And then you add that to the attack on masculinity in our society and a misunderstanding of what it actually means to be a man, and you're left with kind of a disaster where you got a lot of dudes running around not knowing what to do with themselves. And we all can be guilty of that in different parts. Some guys might have their shit together in one component or one area of their life, but they don't have it together in another. So if you go back to episode 1, we talk more about that. We talk about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, how men classically got those needs met, and then how today it's just different. I mean, what's happened is our current society, our social structure, and our technology has evolved faster, than our human biology has. So there's things we need to do in order to find our value again as males, right? And to better ourselves and to be the best version of ourselves. So now entering into the topic for today. Now I'm going to do another one of these because I got into this topic. The topic is narcissism, but why? It's not just narcissism. It's cluster B type personality disorders. So that's antisocial personality disorders. That's histrionics, that's the narcissists, that's your borderlines, that's as far as your DSM, which is your diagnosis manual for psychology. Those are your 4 categories. They're called cluster B types. You have sociopathy, which encompasses all 4 of those in some way, and then psychopathy, which encompasses all those things. And psychopathy is not a diagnosis in the DSM currently. They fall into one or more of the 4 cluster B type categories. I'm not a therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I just have a lot of knowledge on the topic, and I have also experienced this stuff in my life, and people I've coached have experienced this stuff. Let me hop into that for a second. What was this coaching thing all about? Because I'm kind of just stream of consciousness right now. My notes are not compiled in the way they should for the topic today, so we're going to just bounce around a little bit more than usual. So the coaching aspect of it, this happened for me, and I'm not going to talk too much about my personal life all the time because it's not about me, and I'm actually very private, but I've been coaching soldiers for over a decade through the military, taking care of soldier health and welfare and soldier issues often ends up dealing with their finances, you're dealing with their relationships. Relationships became the top thing to deal with because relationships fall apart a lot of times for military people. And you got young guys making bad decisions in their dating lives, you got older guys making bad decisions in all aspects of their lives too. It's all over, it's all ranging for all ages. All right, so it wasn't just 18-year-old privates in the Army that I was counseling. I mean, it's in being with the National Guard too. You have professionals, you have people with other jobs, you have people who are older than I am, and I'm pushing 40 now at this point, and who've needed this advice. And then I got into business networking groups where people who were a lot more successful than I was have achieved yet in business, asking me for advice in their relationships, for fitness, and other aspects of their personal life, and asking for those things. And so I have a bunch of experience coaching people to success. And what the difference between a coach and a therapist, just so you know, is a coach is like a corner man. All right, a therapist is, if somebody comes to me and they have a diagnosable condition, I'm not treating them in the way that a therapist or a doctor should treat them. I'm going to send them to the doctors. All right, therapists are designed to, they're studied, they're degreed, and they're designed to attack certain issues and go really deep with the patient and figure out reasons why, history, whatever, and try to solve or cure or manage mental illness. That's the main reason for a therapist, is managing mental illness. Whereas coaching is a little different. Coaching is getting you results, and that's it. So you're mentally healthy, or maybe you're not. You're seeing a therapist too, but you want to be coached so you can get results. We all know the answers to things. You can Google the answers to shit. I'm going to talk about issues, but you can Google this shit, okay? The thing that I'm an expert in isn't so much all these topics. It's taking all this crap and then finding the information that's most useful to you. The things that are going to get you the results. Because out of all the shit that's out there, there's a lot of bullshit, a lot of fluff, a lot of things that are real interesting, but they're not going to help you action anything and get results. So in a coaching program, your coach helps you get results. Like, for example, with my business coaches that we've had, I know the steps. I know what I'm supposed to do most of the time. Sometimes I'll have advice or a better way of doing something, and those things are helpful. But generally speaking, I know what to do. It's the accountability. It's having someone say, push you to that next level, push you harder to do that next thing. So when you want to take a break or do something different, you got a coach saying, hey, fuckface, let's make this happen. And so that's what coaching does. And you need that stuff. People who achieve peak levels of their lives have coaches. You know what I mean? Whether you're in a sport, you want to, you don't go into the ring. I'm not going to go into the boxing ring without a coach, or go into an MMA or jiu-jitsu match without having practice with somebody who's coaching me, right? And training partners. Coaches are taking things that you often already know and recognizing holes, problems, issues, seeing things from the outside, giving you input, and then giving you action steps that you have to action, and they're holding you accountable for those action steps. So that's what coaching is about. The nature of the podcast is to talk about the issues, but the thing on the side that I'm doing for people currently right now, because I have a coaching group running, and I have some individuals doing it right now with me, is actually coaching people. Most of it's been on relationships. All right, so it's not that I have all the answers again, but there's even stuff in that, like action steps you need to take when you're dating, trying to date, being married for 15 years and you've lost a spark. Who knows, right? I mean, whatever your situation is, there's stuff like that. There's male and female dynamics that you may not be aware of, or if you're aware of it, you're just not actioning that stuff in your relationship. And so, I'm here to help you with that. And the groups are even better, because with the groups, coaching group, we'll have 4 to 6 people. Right now we got 4 people in my group that we're running right now, and you're meeting at a convenient time over FaceTime or Skype or over the phone, and everyone has their own specific issues, and then other members of the group can give input too that'll sometimes help. So it's not just one person with all the answers. Again, we're all just helping each other, but it's in a systemized, organized format. So if you're interested in any of the coaching stuff, you guys got my contact number all over the place, as well as my email. So that was a tangent. Now back to narcissism. Why the tangent? All right, so this topic is going to require me to do this over because I started getting into it, and remember, I run a real estate business. I buy and sell houses. I'm working with Carpet Guys, a great company for flooring, and doing business outreach for them. So I'm doing other things to make a living. I got into the topic because of experience and previous knowledge and extensive books I've read on the topic, but I tried to organize it all, and I was like, holy shit, this thing on narcissism is so long and so big and so extensive. I'm going to need more time. All right? But because consistency is the key, and I'm building the site up and building this podcast up, that means I don't give a shit if I have nothing to talk about. If I say I'm going to be on it 8 o'clock-ish to do something, that means I'm going to be on it. We're talking about something. So narcissism, let's look at what that is. Again, I'm talking about not just narcissism. I'm talking about cluster B type personality disorders. That's everything from your extreme sociopaths to your psychopaths to just your narcissistics or your histrionics and some of these things. The reason why I just said narcissism is because narcissism tends to be a quality or a diagnosis that fits in with every other cluster B type of personality disorder. So someone who's a complete psychopath down to someone who has borderline personality disorder, narcissism is usually something that goes with that. Okay? So if you're learning and understanding how to deal with a narcissist and how to not get into a relationship with a narcissist and recognize those things beforehand, you're going to probably shield yourself from all of those other personality disorders that could poison your life. All right? So let's see, data. Well, right now the data is saying that as far as narcissistic personality disorder is concerned, they say it's 75% men. I'm challenging that statistic right now. The reason why is because they get that statistic from prison populations, and we know that the prisons are filled mostly with men rather than women. Okay, so there's more men, hands down, in prisons than there are women by a long shot. And now men do commit more crimes and more violent crimes than women do. That's a fact. That's a statistical fact. But as far as being narcissistic or being cluster B type, we assume it's 50-50. I mean, really, we don't really know who's more into that, men or women. Women definitely do have different strategies, things that they do differently than men sometimes in these things. Where like men tend to be more violent, for example. But even then, though, that's not the case. We're looking at domestic violence stats, and we're finding it's about equal between the two for who's instigating these domestic violence incidents. And so it's not. My point is, don't read the stats and think that women. I don't want you men out there to think that women are less likely to be narcissistic or have these personality disorders. You're being duped by statistics that are not being accurately formulated. Assume that you're just as likely as that woman who's a good girl and runs into the wrong dude. You're just as likely to run in and stick your dick into the wrong girl. All right. So you have to be very careful out there because this stuff will ruin your life, and I mean, it's going to damage you. Being in a relationship with someone like this is very damaging. So let me describe something for you. Imagine this. Imagine you've been working your entire life, building something, okay? And you're in your career. Let's pick a good career. I don't know. You're an accountant, and you went to school. You know, you got your CPA. Things are going good. You're building your business. You're making good money. You just bought a new car. You got a nice, beautiful home on the lake, St. Clair, with your boat, and you got your wife, and just had your first baby, and everything's going just spectacular. Your problems are you have problems, but they're very small little problems, like, is that annoying in-law going to be at the Christmas party or something like that. It's not these major issues. And then, all of a sudden, you can't get in touch with your significant other. And, she doesn't come home at all, like on a particular evening. She never even, and you're calling, you're looking to make a police report. You're not getting any real good response from the police. They're saying to wait. They're not going to make a report yet. And you're trying to figure things out. And you figure shit out. And you don't know where your kid is either. They're missing right now. And, everything's starting to look a little weird. And then you show up at your office that you've been building. And there's a lock on the door and a chain. And everybody's gone. And two dudes in suits come in. Obviously, this is a fictional thing, right? Two dudes in suits come over, and they're wearing sunglasses. They look like, Men in Black type stuff, right? And they say, you got to come with us. We need to have a conversation. And, then they take you someplace into an office, and they tell you, that, hey, everything you've been building over since you graduated high school, it's all been fabricated by the government. Everything you know is true is not actually true. You don't actually have a degree as a CPA. We fabricated the whole thing. We've been running this experiment. Some of your loved ones when you're younger participated without knowing they were participating. And we fabricated this whole thing. Your wife is actually an actress. The kid that she had was not your child. Everything, your whole world as you know it is upside down and is not yours. But we'll retain the house, and you'll go back, and we'll let you talk to your wife that was hired, but you guys have been together, and we'll look at other options to help you recover from this. But thank you for doing your duty to society in a country, because we got a lot of great data for this experiment. And so you're devastated, and you're like, what the fuck just happened to my life is over. Like, I don't even know what my life is anymore. I can't trust anything. You're finding out people that you thought were your friends or, different things. Nothing is real anymore. And then you go to the house that they said that would be there when you got there, and it's burnt to the ground. All right, so it's burnt to the ground. And then, that girl that you've built a life with, your woman is, she never shows up. And then you just basically, so you're figuring out, you end up going to someone's house that's from your childhood, and you're trying to repair it. You get a letter from the government saying, well, never mind, but have fun rebuilding your life. Okay, so that's a lengthy scenario, okay? Imagine that happening, how horrifying that would be to have everything you know and trust and everything you think is reality to find out that it's all false. It's like, I think there's a movie, like The Truman Show or something like that, I don't know, like a while ago where that happens, and I think it was sort of comical, but it's really a scary proposition, right? Well, what I just described there is what it's like to be in a relationship with someone who has cluster B type personality disorder or a narcissist. All right. Now, obviously, your house hopefully isn't burning down, or your business isn't closed up. But what's happening is, in the relationship and your love life, everything you thought you knew to be true is no longer true. It's like waking up in the twilight zone, and you can no longer trust anything. And then you start reviewing and seeing the systematic damage that's happened for the duration of that relationship. The longer that relationship lasted, the more damage that there is from it. And you're now left to pick the pieces up. Once you're out, and that takes some time sometimes for people, depending on what decisions they make, kids involved, if it's a marriage, all those things. Once you're out, you're left picking the pieces up and having to try to learn to trust again and trust in your next relationship. And the real son of a bitch is that the person in the next relationship now gets all that baggage from what happened. If you actually start to fall in love with somebody again, all of these fears, insecurities, all this stuff starts going to start coming right back at you, because you were in this relationship where that was a complete hoax, because the person that you thought you were with was really somebody completely different, and actually not even really a human being, practically. Okay, by the definition of what we understand human beings to be like. So it's horrifying. People who are in relationships with narcissists, and again, that's anyone cluster B type. It can be a very horrifying, traumatic experience. Some people don't recover from it. The ones that do recover from it often need therapy. They need to do a lot of self-evaluation. I mean, it depends on how extensive the relationship was. And there's usually trauma that they carry. There will 100% be trauma that you will carry into your next relationship. It's just a matter of, are you going to handle that trauma? How are you going to handle it? You know what I mean? Are you going to handle it well enough? And is your next relationship, is that person patient enough to handle the damage that was caused from being in a love relationship with a narcissist? Again, I'm using narcissist in a general term. Could be someone with borderline personality disorder. Could be a complete psychopath, right? It could be, right? But narcissism is that quality. So when we'll redefine some things too, or have some definitions. So that cluster B type personality disorders, what that means is these people do not have the ability to have a functioning human relationship as you know it. Okay? So as you know it, a relationship where there's connection, empathy, compassion, and bonding with that partner, they do not have the ability to bond in that way. All right? Now, if they're a complete psychopath, they have zero human consciousness at all. And okay, they might not be a complete psychopath. They could be somebody who's borderline, who has a damaged childhood and some different things, but they have no ability now to connect with another human being in that way. Or they could be just a straight narcissist, which is kind of the catch-all term I'm using, but narcissistic personality disorder diagnosis, or at least just maybe a person who doesn't fit the diagnosis but has those traits. They're just so self-consumed, self-absorbed into their own dysfunction that they can't have normal functioning relationships. But that is what I mean. So when I say narcissist, I'm talking about people who cannot have normal functioning relationships with another person. All right? So love as you know it is not something that they understand or can experience or have the ability to experience. And so what is left over then? What is left over? Because they don't have that ability, is manipulation, power, and control. That's all that's left over. And it's really all about winning. If you don't have any empathy or sympathy for another person in your relationships, what you're left with is you just have to win. So whatever you perceive winning to be, that's all you know. That's all you're going to go for. And now narcissists classically have, deep down inside, they have a terrible view of themselves, because the objective reality is that everybody's flawed, okay? We all have flaws, but a narcissist doesn't want to recognize their own flaws. Any flaw that they have is really the fault of somebody or something else in their own mind. And so their unconscious and conscious mind, the objective reality versus the magical world that they create around themselves, they're in direct conflict. And so they're creating this person for themselves that they want to and want everyone else to believe and that they believe that really isn't who they are. They hate the person who they really are. And so in these love relationships, they tend to project that hatred into their partner. Now, of course, this doesn't happen on the first date. This is a systematic breaking down of this other person. Winning, they don't understand how to have a relationship with someone. But see, just because they don't have that, they still have needs, though, and desires and wants as a living creature. So they still want to have a bonding with another person. They still have social needs. They still need, of course, so all the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, those needs are still there. They just don't have like an ability to bond with another person like as you and I, as far as you and I know it. So what's left is manipulating other people to get those needs met. And they'll do that in the capacity of a relationship, all right? And so that's a generalization. There's clinical terms for this stuff. I'll back up too to say, I see an over-assumption and diagnosis of narcissists and this sociopaths, whatever, all over the place, all right? I say that because just because you had a shitty relationship with someone, that doesn't mean that they're a sociopath, all right? So we got to back this up and to say, not every person that you're incompatible with, even not every person that does bad shit to you is a narcissist. I mean, somebody could have cheated on you. Somebody could have lied to you. Somebody could have a bunch of real interpersonal or psychological problems, but they're not necessarily a narcissist. The cutoff or the thing is, do they have the capacity to love and have a relationship with someone else in the same way that you and I, who are normal people, would understand that? Empathy, compassion, sympathy, all those things. Do they have that capacity, or do they not have that capacity, either because they have zero conscience, as far as like a psychopath, sociopath type, or because of some damage or deep interpersonal problem like, antisocial personality, histrionics, and so forth. So it's a question of what degree and what part, but the point is that in their state, they just don't have the ability to bond or pair bond, especially in a relationship, with another human being. So what's left over is just pure manipulation and control and evil. It's actually very evil. I'm a firm believer that there's good and evil out there, and this is, I'm not trying to get too esoteric on you, but if there are demons walking this earth shaped like humans, these people are it, okay? Truthfully, they bring evil and havoc and just massive amount of psychological and sometimes physical damage, but the psychological damage is always worse that they bring to their partners, all right? So, look at a few notes I have here. So what do we want to do is we want to talk about, see, I got a little bit of time left, and I'm just going to wrap it up because, again, this is going to have to encompass more than one video. All right? I painted a picture of how terrible it is. Let's talk about the steps and what happens, because we're going to cut right down. There's so much information on this. Let's cut right down to the nitty-gritty and the bullshit. 10 minutes, let's get it done, okay? So, what happens, here's the stages of being in a relationship with a narcissist. Starts off with the attraction phase or the charm phase, okay? Where they are, and understand they have needs just like everybody else in Maslow's hierarchy, but all their interpersonal communication is all manipulation. So they learn how to mirror and mask whatever it takes to bring someone in. Okay, so the charm phase is that attraction phase. Now, here's a big mistake. There are different types of narcissists, so some people get sucked in because they don't realize that this person could be that. So there are generally two different masks that a narcissist will wear, or will wear a combination of both. One is that confident, extroverted, charming, I can do anything and everything. I'm on top of the world. I'm the most capable person in the world. That's that one mask. I'm the best, all right? And then the other mask, and this is what fucks people up, is the mask of the victim. I'm really damaged. Something bad happened to me. I need help, okay? So those are two masks that different types of narcissists will wear. And some will wear both. Some will be that I'm this charming, awesome person, mask number one, and then they charm you in, and then you realize, oh man, but they're damaged too. And so now they're attractive in the sense, and we'll talk female to male because this is a male thing, so that female is attractive in the sense that she's confident, she's beautiful, good communication skills, all this stuff. Walks into a room, people like her, good, she seems like she has her shit together, driven, all these good things that a guy like myself or you listening would want. And then, but she's damaged too. So the second mask is that of being damaged. My last ex was this person, or I was raped when I was a child, or it's this damage that'll happen too to get you to want to help them, to use and latch onto that empathy. I'm going through a terrible divorce and he's so terrible. I've never felt love before. There's so many ways that damage sort of manifests itself, and these are how they suck you in. And they do this, so during the charm phase, it's like the beginning dating phase. What they're doing, though, is they're paying close attention, and they're probably paying better attention than you are on all of they're looking for what triggers you, what makes you happy, what's going to make you attracted, and also what's a put-off. What's going to drag you into their world, you know what I mean? And so that's what they're doing, they're attracting you. And once you're attracted, and you're in this relationship now, you've already had, and there's, again, there are all different types, just it's not just one. Not everybody's a somatic narcissist. Somatics are the ones with 10,000 selfies and, usually very sexually promiscuous and all this stuff, because they're very physical. Some of them are very cerebral too, where they can appear to be introverted, and they can appear to be maybe even like they're not trying to show themselves quite so much as the physical somatic ones. So again, don't be fooled. There are different types that fit in with different subdiagnosed subtypes of narcissism, all right, that can trap you in. But they will follow this pattern though in the relationship that I'm saying. So step one is the charming phase, and then step two is the idealization phase. So the idealization phase is where they become your soulmate. They fabricate soulmate for you, all right? So they become, and that could last 2 weeks to 6 months. It's however long it takes for them. What they want is they want your total and complete reliance on them. They want your love. The thing that they can't experience, they want to take that from you and have that from you. All right? They're unable to return that love, but they want that from you. But what they are able to do is fabricate it. They're able to be your perfect soulmate because they're paying close attention to all of these characteristics, these things that trigger you, all the things that you've ever wanted in a mate. They're paying attention and becoming that person for you. And it's almost like if you mail ordered yourself the perfect woman, that's what they become for you, but only for a short period of time. Because they take that and they draw you in with that, and they're also assessing all of your weaknesses. Anything that's an insecurity or a weakness or a negative trigger for you, they are assessing that stuff and they're putting it in their back pocket for later. So during that idealization phase, you're in the most amount of love you've ever been in, probably. Because, I would say you are. Here's why I can say that safely. I mean, there's a few one-offs on this. But unless you're a widow and your spouse or your woman passed away, and you were madly in love with her and she passed away, you're not in that relationship anymore, right? So at the current state you're in, when you're with this person, your past exes, you're no longer with them. So you may have been in love before with past exes, but something caused that relationship to break up. You're no longer with them, so they weren't that perfect soulmate. I'm using the word soulmate. Don't get freaked out on the esoteric term, but they weren't that perfect partner for you, okay? Or you'd be with them still, correct? So you're single, you meet this person, they charm you, idealization happens where they're flooding you with compliments, they're flooding you, you're the best thing that's ever happened to them, and their love is just so tremendous, and their love is like, just endless love for you, and it's this idealization, and it makes you feel amazing, and you get addicted to that feeling, that dream. You're in a dream right now. That oxytocin and dopamine is pumping through, and you're in, and whatever triggers you. You're a sexual person, they're the best sex you've ever had. You're not so sexual, but you're more into, gift giving and stuff like that. That really helps you respond. They're flooding you with gifts. I mean, they're saying the right things, they're doing the right things, because they're analyzing you and they're literally fabricating that soulmate. And then comes into the next phase, all right? So once they've fabricated that and they've hooked you in and they've kept it going for long enough where you are addicted to their love, their fabricated love, because it's not real, and you're in love with them, see, that's a win for them. So narcissists feed off of, there's a term for it and I forgot, but they feed off of that energy, if you want to call it. They need a constant feeding of that ego. And so getting you to fall in love with them is a feeding of that. Understand that they could be doing this and fucking other people, okay? They could be doing this with multiple people at the same time. It's just, there's no boundaries based on what you consider boundaries. As a normal human, they don't have these boundaries. So they could be doing anything. They could be telling you anything. They're lying to you probably, but you don't know about what. But during that time, that idealization phase, you've never been so in love in your life. That'll be a fact of the matter. Because again, unless you're a widow, you've never been so in love as that day. Now, after this whole relationship ends, and you're damaged from it, you recover from it, you could find a real relationship where you're more in love than you've ever been in your life than you've ever been with that narcissist. I mean, that's really the truth. So I mean, it's not like hope is lost, but that's only after you've leveled up from this experience, all right? But in the experience, they're the most love you've ever experienced. Probably the case, okay? Next phase, then, is the devaluation phase now. And so I'm at 9 o'clock, and I'm going to end this really soon, so I'll cover these things quick, and this will have to be a continued episode for sure. Devaluation is the next phase. That's where they systematically break you down, okay? And there's a million ways that this happens, and I'm going to have to get into it in another episode. But what they start doing is they take those weaknesses and they capitalize on all of those weaknesses to break you down. And what they do is they'll do things to trigger that weakness, to cause you to do something. So let's say you have an insecurity about, I don't know. Let's say you have an insecurity with their male friends. I don't know. Let's just say, okay. Well, now they start texting, calling their male friends, meeting their male friends up and things. They do little things that aren't wrong, but they're piquing your anxiety and your insecurities. And then you're trying to like, hey, that makes me insecure. Don't do that. But you may not be even handling it the right way. They're trying to get you to explode, to blow up. They're finding that weakness and they're just poking it. And they're trying to get you to fall into a trap, to be upset because they had lunch with a friend who is a male and you're not comfortable with that. If that's your insecurity that they found, right? And then they start withdrawing all that love bombing that's called, that they did during the idealization phase. They start withdrawing that because, you just yelled at me. I just went out with this friend, or what's wrong with you? And you see, and so they start doing stuff like that. And it's in different ways. It depends on the personality type, but they basically start breaking you down, and they do it in such a way where they make you believe it's your fault that things are breaking down. That magical relationship that you've had for 6 months or whatever it might be that you thought was magical starts breaking down, and they're making you feel like it's your fault. You're not this enough. You're not that enough, Well, you stop going to the gym, or, whatever it is. They start systematically finding that weakness, Well, you said you're going to go to the gym more often, and, you're the same as you were 6 months ago, and, well, I'm going to go off and do my own thing. I'm going to go for a run, or, like they start making you feel insecure, and they start breaking you down, and they start devaluing you. And what happens is, the worst part about that is you start questioning yourself, because they're all based on weaknesses, and you start devaluing yourself. Because what'll happen at first is you'll go, oh man, like, I just fucked up. I got angry at her because, she did this. She went out and didn't tell me where she was going, and she hasn't done that ever before, whatever, and she wouldn't return my texts, and I got kind of nervous and angry. I thought something was wrong, and whatever, because that's an insecurity you have, right? I'm just saying, I don't know. And so, and it'll even go as far as like the bedroom. Like if there's an insecurity you have in the bedroom or whatever, something like that, you know what I mean? They'll fabricate a situation, and then they'll be upset over it, or whatever. Or if it's a victim person, then it's like they'll do something. They could even do something to harm themselves, or go on a drinking binge, or attempt a suicide, or something like that. And then that's your fault because you're not supportive enough of them, or whatever. And then they withdraw that love. So now all the torment starts happening. I mean, if you were saving them from themselves because they were the passive victim type versus that overt somatic narcissist, then they start maybe doing things, having emotional distress, calling you at work because they're so upset and crazy because of something you did. Maybe you go to some work meetings and you do something perfectly normal, and she's presenting it as if it's not normal. She'll set up baits for you to get you, to cause you to say something. One person more recently had told, had not been telling friends and family members about the relationship, and then they told the guy about that, and that made him like, why are you not telling people about a relationship? He got upset about that, and then she turned around and just came back with being more upset. You don't understand, you know what I mean? And it was just like they start creating these arguments, these fights, and they withdraw, but the end result is they withdraw all that love that you once had gets withdrawn. It's no longer there. They use that as a bait now. So they've took that away now, and now you were addicted to that. So like a crack addict, you're trying to get that back. You're not looking at this and going, she's doing this to me. She's this narcissistic person who's doing this stuff to me. You're looking at it like, I'm doing something wrong, or there's something, we need to work on this. Something's wrong here. And you start really trying to scramble to get that love feeling back the way it was. And guess what? The whole rest of the relationship now is you trying to get that back the way it was. The way it was will never happen again. But what they will do, though, is they'll give you little sprinkles of that love bomb again. Love sprinkles, so to speak. Where when you start to really give up, they'll throw in, like, all of a sudden there's that lovingness again, and you start to think it's going to be there again. And they bring you back in, and then boom, it's back to torment and more devaluing of you. Devaluing you, right? And so that just continues. And this could continue for years. You could get married to this person. You could be with this person for decades. And they will do whatever they want. They don't care. Whatever means winning for them. You know what I'm saying? So some of the somatic types that are real sexual, guaranteed they're cheating on you. I mean, I listened to a podcast of a guy who's married to pretty much a downright psychopath. She was escorting and sleeping with multiple dudes while she was sleeping with this guy every single day. It's like, I'll try to link it up maybe because it's incredible. You listen to that and you're like, holy crap. But I mean, I've seen and experienced through soldiers. I've had soldiers come back to all their shit gone, missing, and bank accounts drained. I've had soldiers, you know, in a relationship with someone and they're cheating with multiple people. Cheating is a big factor sometimes in these things. Not that everyone that cheats, though, is a narcissist. I mean, cheating actually happens very commonly in our society, and not everybody's that. It's only like 5% of this population that's this narcissistic type. Now, I'm not saying cheating is right. Cheating is definitely wrong. Normal people cheat, okay? But narcissists have a different motivation for why they're doing it and what's causing it. And that's the other important thing to remember here, too, is that narcissists will do things that normal people do that are flawed. You know what I mean? Some people might have a trust issue and they pull away, you know, when they're hurt or they're not sure they want to face something, and they might pull away for a couple days or whatever. But that doesn't mean that that person's intentionally withholding affection, right? Whereas a narcissist is doing that as a manipulation tool. You see what I mean? So it's like that's the other confusing part about this stuff, is that they will do things, all the stuff that they do pretty much are things that you or I could do under another circumstance. But the difference is our motivation is different. All right, we're still normal people who want a pair bond in the way that human beings do that, and they are not that person. Their motivation is manipulation, power, control, and winning, whatever they perceive a win is. And the last part of that phase in this relationship, if it does end, and they usually do, is the discarding phase. Discarding is where they've milked you for every resource that they can. They've taken everything that they believe they can from you, and either because you've cut them off or because they are just done with you at that point, and then they discard you. And when they discard you, all of the masks fall off. The victim mask falls off, as well as the other thing. For example, I've know someone who had somebody that they were with was playing the victim all the time and always wanting to commit suicide. I mean, it was to a point where, like, somebody died at a funeral and that person would cry, and then the significant other would cry even harder and be more upset. You know what I mean? It's like, and then of course, this is actually a male. Then the female who was it was actually a male who was doing this. Then the female would be angry that this dude is more upset. Like, how are you even this upset? Like, you didn't know the guy that well. But then she's not questioning herself, because it's like, I shouldn't be mad that he's upset, but I'm genuinely upset because I knew this person who died really well, and this person didn't, and now they're, you know what I mean? It was like he was constantly playing this victim thing, and then all of a sudden one day he assaulted her physically, you know? And by the way, I've had that same thing happen in reverse with the highly anxious victim female, you know, and then this victim is all of a sudden trying to kill you, all right, or trying to break your shit, or trying to physically assault you. So, and that's towards like the end, right? So, I mean, was that person really a victim? Do victims try to now assault you and try to actually kill you? You see what I'm saying? So, like, the discarding phase is when all of these masks fall away, and now you see the real person for the evil that they are. And that's my time. I actually have another call to make, so I can't continue with this video, unfortunately. Which is too bad, because we need to talk about techniques and tactics to not get into relationships with these people. And if you are in a relationship with someone who is like this, how to get out of it. It's a really important topic for people who want to be that 5%. Because as you get more and more successful, and as you get to be a better person and become the best version of yourself, you will attract people who are like this, who see you as a challenge. The higher status you are as a male, the more challenging you are to females who are exhibiting these disorders. And so they will see you as a challenge. They'll want to come after you. And so you need to have a vetting process for this stuff. But in short, the vetting process is this, but we'll talk more about it in another video or podcast. The vetting process is really looking at their actions rather than their words, and not just their actions towards you, but their actions towards other people. Look at how they treat others, and look at how they treat people who they have no vested interest in or who can't provide much value to them. How do they treat those people? So just the waiter, waitress, or that family member, someone in their business in a relationship with, how are they treating, how are they reacting to those people? And if you notice narcissistic, a lack of empathy, a lack of compassion for other people that they have no use for, these are red flags. If you ask, and this is another one, there's this idea in our society and in the dating world and relationship world let the past be the past. Yeah, of course, kind of. It's important to ask about past relationships. I disagree with that sentiment that, whatever happened in your past, we'll never talk about that stuff. Yeah, you're in a new relationship. This is a fresh start, but your past experiences make up who you are, for better or for worse. And even if you made bad decisions in the past, well, because I've made bad decisions, but how did I overcome those decisions? Why am I going to not make that same bad decision again? If I wronged somebody before, which most of us have done that, whether intentionally or on purpose, let's say you've wronged someone, you did something really bad in a relationship. Well, why are you going to not do that again? You know what I mean? What did you learn from that? And so it's important to ask about the past relationships, motivations involved, what caused them to do the behaviors that they did, and then why are they going to not do those things now? What did they learn from it? Somebody who is narcissistic has zero ability to take accountability for themselves. So you'll see them cut down everybody else around them, or any problem or issue they've had in the past is usually something that was somebody else's fault or some other outside cause. And they're never usually at fault or in need of improving stuff. Now you still have to be careful, because the smarter narcissists will know that that's a trait you're looking for, and they'll fabricate and lie to you anyway. But looking at actions towards others outside of you and your relationships. So take the blinders off and see how they are. If they were terrible to their ex, maybe they're going to be terrible to you too in a few months. You see what I'm saying? So these are things you need to look for. And then again, of course, ask about those past experiences and really analyze these things and see if you're possibly getting into it with the wrong person, with someone who will destroy your psyche and leave you broken, having to put that all back together. And just because you're a man, that doesn't mean that you're not susceptible to this. You are very susceptible, just as susceptible as any female. Just because it's a little different for you, that doesn't mean it's not as damaging. It can be very damaging. Well, that's my time, guys. Thanks for tuning in. This will be on the YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe, okay, comment. I'm going to have this more organized, and we'll talk about it in other episodes. It's a very extensive topic. Really, I could dedicate an entire podcast, all episodes, to this topic. I won't do that because we want to get into some other issues that are going to help dudes out and help people become better. But, this is just a topic that you need to be aware of, and you need to have the awareness that this is out there. And if you want that relationship that's amazing with somebody, you need to make sure you're getting into a relationship with the right person, because you'll never have it with someone who exhibits that cluster B type personality disorder qualities. All right, thanks for listening, and I will see you next time.